What about teenagers?
Right. So, part of what we did in one of our clinical studies was we looked at the safety aspect because there is a lot of concern over young adults and caffeine intake. And actually, there's caffeine steering committees that look specifically at that and how the intake levels might have changed over the last decade. And a new study is actually going to be published this year because the last study that was done was like 6 years ago. So everybody's kind of thinking, oh, is there a significant change in, young adults and their caffeine consumption? So the jury's still out on that, but it will be out soon. But ultimately, really what it comes down to is it's safe, right? In the one study that we did on cognitive health, we were looking specifically at, okay, does it change or impact things like heart rate? And does it change or impact things like your circadian rhythm, right? So that was where the big concern was with some of the energy drinks that were out there. So part of what we did in this evaluation was there's this QT measurement, a QT sub C. And so it's Q wave relative to T wave.
So guys, these are markers of cardiac function when you look at an EKG, just to translate that. Okay,
right. And so that differential is what you look at to see if you have a cardiac arrhythmia. And there was no, even though some of the prior literature said that energy drinks basically provoke this.
Some of them can.
Yeah. We said, okay, well, let's study this and make sure. And what we found was when we take an AMT, you don't actually have any significant change in those. Even though it has the caffeine in there, you don't see that net change or that net negative change in the QT ratio. So that's a good thing, right? And not only that, you don't see an increase in heart rate.
Wow.
So there's all these other things that, say to yourself, okay, there's probably the right way to do this, right? And the right way to formulate.
Okay. That's interesting. Is there a difference for men and women in how MT max works?
Yes. So clinical evidence shows that women are just significantly more sensitive to caffeine than men are. And maybe it has to do with, and I'm not sure we even understand, maybe it has to do with the fact that men generally consume more caffeine than women.
You're saying women are just little men?
But it probably...
Physiologically, there's so many differences,
right? But it probably has more to do just with the chemistry, right?
It totally does, right?
Yeah. So we definitely see that in every study that we've ever done, that women are definitely more sensitive to caffeine intake.
Are they more sensitive to MT max?
So not necessarily more sensitive to MT max, but they definitely see a response in things like how they're feeling. So we're not seeing it in biomarkers and in testing. So we're not seeing it in blood pressure changes. But what we are seeing, so between men and women, for example, but what we are seeing are changes in just their perception of how they feel.
So they might need a smaller dose, but they're going to feel really good.
Absolutely.
Okay. What about during perimenopause? And I've had so many friends who are saying, my brain worked really well, and then I started going through perimenopause, and like, what is going on here? Is MT max something you've either tested, or do you have anecdotal evidence? Is this good for bringing your energy back?
So, there is this subset of population of clinical trials, and specifically in performance and sports nutrition around a deficit and just looking at women, right? So when we did our University of Iowa study, we really focused on the females in that study just because we wanted to see, okay, is there a significant change in performance parameters associated with intake and also during that, that change in life, right? And we are seeing, just as a general population, the onset of perimenopause is happening a lot sooner, right, than it used to be even 20 years ago. So essentially what that means is you're just more sensitive to fatigue, right? And you're more sensitive to demands in your energy, whatever that means, on an individual basis. And during this study, we actually saw a nice increase in energy and a much significant decrease in fatigue associated with the MT max intake. So that was great. And it did transfer into a trend analysis for performance as well. So when we did like our sarcomotor and, all of those analysis related to, hey, are they just performing better?
Okay. Now, if you're saying, all right, I want to give this a try, there's a list of companies who use this in their things. It's at appliedfoods.com/where to buy. So you can go there, and you can also just Google for Amatea, AMATEA max is the name of this ingredient. And it's different than just drinking guayusa because this is a specific extract of the chlorogenic acids. and the caffeine, basically.
Exactly.
So that's going to have a different effect than just drinking a couple of guayusa teas, right?
Sure, it'll be at a much different concentration of actives,